Hey, it's Emma Chamberlain. I designed these new glasses for Warby Parker, and I basically can't take them off. Like, I'm showering in them and sleeping in them. They're just that good. Go see them all at warbyparker.com. And you know what? Have a good day too. Okay? All right? Bye.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. I'm delighted to have you with me, including the people who think I can just step out and have lunch in the middle of the day. Do you people not know what I do for a living? In any event, the phone number here is 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, and listen, I need to make an announcement. I've been waiting on this one to be able to tell you, because I wasn't sure we were going to be able to pull this off, because he never, ever does events like that. I mean, he's never done an event like this. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell will be joining me on stage at the gathering next Friday. Today is the last day you can get a ticket. We've got to close down registration so the Secret Service can do their reviews. So you've got to text ENGAGE to 33777 to get the link. Or if you go to ericerickson.com, there's a button that says register for the gathering. You can click that button as well. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell will be joining me on stage for a 30-minute conversation about the Senate, keeping the Senate, the fight for judges, and why Republican control of the Senate is important. He does not do events outside his home state of Kentucky. He doesn't have to. He's not accountable to anybody except the voters of Kentucky. But he has agreed to come sit down with me. We'll have the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, and we'll have the Senate Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, at the gathering, along with Ron DeSantis of Florida, Glenn Youngkin of Virginia, Brian Kemp of Georgia, Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma, Ryan Walters, the great school superintendent of Oklahoma, is going to be there. Congressman Chip Roy is going to be there. Congressman Kevin Hern, the head of the Republican Study Committee, will be there. Congresswoman Kat Cammack of Florida is going to be there. Senator Rick Scott of Florida is going to be there. It's going to be a great event. You got to register today. If you're a young professional, you can use the discount code YR and get a major discount. But you have to either go to ericerickson.com today, click the registration button, or text the word ENGAGE to 33777 if you want to be at the event. It'll be the evening of August 8th and then all day the 9th and 10th at the Grand Hyatt in Atlanta in Buckhead. So there you have it. That's the news. Mitch McConnell will be joining us. Now, I know everybody wants to start with the Kamala Harris rally in Atlanta last night. That is actually not the most important news of the day. And I will just say out of the gate that you do need to remember that every member of the media telling you Kamala Harris has this wave of enthusiasm from people is the same member of the media that told you there was nothing wrong with Joe Biden 2 months ago. Don't necessarily believe it. What's remarkable is that as the polling has now shifted around, it's exactly where it was before the debate with Donald Trump still in the lead. It's not the biggest news, though. I say all the time, events change things, and there are major events happening elsewhere in the world. Ismail Haniyeh is dead. You have no idea who Ismail Haniyeh is, but you need to know he's one of the most senior leaders of Hamas. He has served in exile in Qatar, running their political operations, and he went to Tehran for the inauguration of the new Iranian president, and Israel assassinated him there. Not only has Israel assassinated one of the highest-ranking members of Hamas inside Iran, no less, but they also went into Lebanon in a strike and assassinated Fouad Sukur, who is a senior member of Hezbollah, attacking him while he was apparently in his lover's apartment. This is a good thing and also a problem. It raises tensions in the Middle East. The Ayatollah Khamenei has responded, saying, in effect, that Iran has no choice but to respond, and has hoisted the red flag of jihad. Now, this escalates tensions. U.S. military vessels have been seen heading towards the Lebanon-Israeli coast. This could draw us into a conflict. Iran and Hamas are blaming Israel for killing Haniyeh, who deserved to die, by the way, just so you know. He was a awful person. He was involved in the ceasefire negotiations, but he was also involved in the ceasefire negotiations that Hamas broke on October 7th. But then there's also Fawad Shukr, who was a terror mastermind for Hezbollah, who also was complicit in the bombing of the military barracks in Beirut that killed all the Marines back in the day. What's so notable to me is how so much of the Western press, including, for example, the New York Times, treats the leaders of Hezbollah as some sort of a legitimate group. They're a terrorist organization funded by Iran. And what's also notable to me is that they don't mention that these people have also murdered Americans. They leave all those details out. Like, for example, the Washington Post and the BBC, among others, refuse to actually cover the fact that what provoked Israel to respond to Hezbollah was Hezbollah killing a bunch of Israeli kids on a soccer field. In fact, the Washington Post coverage, and again, the Washington Post, by and large, has become an operation, a propaganda operation for terrorists. It's not actually hiding it to the point. Their foreign press, remember, there were a number of reports about the foreign editorial page in the news division for foreign press at the Washington Post was trying to take out the new editor of the Washington Post, because he was deemed too pro-Israel. But beyond that now, the Washington Post has had to come out and apologize for its coverage of the killing of the Hezbollah leadership, because they failed to note that actually this was in response to Hezbollah killing a bunch of American kids or Israeli kids. Yet the Washington Post has had to amend a statement and amend its coverage to apologize for not being very truthful. The editors forced the newsroom to append their coverage to apologize for how blatantly anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, and anti-truth their coverage of the situation was. So if you're reading Western media, you're not really getting the heart of the matter. This is a dangerous and escalating situation. But it's also one that was necessarily needing to be fought. And lest you misunderstand the coverage here, because a lot of you won't understand the coverage because it's so poor from Western outlets. Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran are not actually beloved by other Middle Eastern countries. Saudi Arabia is not going to go to war with Israel because of what it did. It's grateful. Jordan is not going to go to war with Israel because of what it did. It's grateful. Egypt, same thing. The United Arab Emirates, same thing. Bahrain, same thing. Oman, same thing. The only questionable one is Qatar, and it doesn't have the means to do anything. You see, Iran is a threat to all of its Middle Eastern nations, and it uses proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, to carry out its will. Israel cutting off the heads of the leadership of those organizations does a favor to other Middle Eastern countries. Remember, the Houthi rebels in Yemen are also at war with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, having launched missile attacks and rocket attacks on those countries. The Houthi, funded by Iran, they're going to be taken out as well, more likely than not. The American military has also conducted strikes overnight in Syria and Iraq as Iran-backed forces have targeted American soldiers there. The situation continues to deteriorate in Venezuela. This is the world Joe Biden is leaving for us. A destabilized world. And also, the Ukrainian map has expanded to Africa. What? Yes. So in Mali is a country in Africa. Have you ever heard of Timbuktu? When I was a kid, I thought Timbuktu was an imaginary place. Timbuktu is a real place. 1,000 years ago, Timbuktu was an impressive place, not so much anymore. There are a number of groups in Mali that are fighting for control of portions of the country. And the Wagner group from Russia has moved in and set up shop and have coordinated trying to control the country. Why? Because Mali is a hotbed of Islamic radicalism. And the Wagner group has tried to destabilize the country so that American forces would be distracted from Ukraine. Essentially, what the Russians have wanted to do was destabilize the Sahel, that region of Africa that surrounds and borders the Sahara, so that American resources would have to be deployed there to prop up collapsing nations against Islamic jihadists. The whole reason the Wagner troops are there is not to take over countries so much as to require our redirection of force to Africa away from Ukraine. Ukraine's military intelligence agency has claimed it was involved in an ambush that killed Russia's Wagner group mercenaries in the West African nation of Mali, thousands of miles away from Ukraine. It was a combined coalition of Mali forces that decided to drive the Russians out, and the Ukrainian intelligence operation coordinated with them to kill the Russian mercenaries. They will not say if Ukrainian personnel were on the ground when it happened. War is spreading. Ukraine is fighting Russia in Mali. Israel is assassinating people in Iran. U.S. warships are, as I speak, steaming towards Lebanon and Israel across the Mediterranean Sea. The United States is killing Iranian-backed agents in Syria and Iran. As I'm speaking, there's word now that Israel has just assassinated another leader of Hamas inside Syria. That news is just breaking as I'm speaking. China, Iran, and Russia are now in Venezuela, helping Venezuelan troops train for a takeover of the western region of Guyana. Haiti is in collapse, and the Russians and Chinese are circling it with their ships, using ports in Cuba. This is the Biden-Harris administration world. It is starting to burn. The dominoes seem to now be falling in an inescapable way towards something wicked coming. It's all there for every single person to see. And Joe Biden is incompetent, and Kamala Harris is not much better. And the American media would rather spend their time celebrating Kamala Harris's rise, hoping that she can stop Donald Trump, than pay attention to a world on the verge of war. Because this administration, its Secretary of State, its Secretary of Defense, its national security apparatus, and its leaders are the biggest idiots to preside over American foreign policy since the end of World War II. And of course, they'll all blame Trump and never accept responsibility. This is the willful naivete of the American left thinking that it can kumbaya its way into world peace. And instead, what it's done is it's provoked the world to the precipice of World War III. That's going to be Joe Biden's legacy.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Okay. Can I complain about the modern state of healthcare post-Obamacare? This seems to be a problem. I thought Obama was fixing healthcare, making it affordable and all of that. So I've been going to the gym, was taking creatine, and it causes your kidney blood test to look like your kidneys aren't working, even though your kidneys are fine. But I had to go do a test like last year. And they said, oh, your blood work isn't good, so we're going to do a urine test where basically you got to pee in this jar like every time you go to the bathroom for 24 hours and then bring it in. And we analyze it. And so I did. And they're like, you're perfectly fine. It's because you're going to CrossFit and you're taking creatine. It's fine. So go back to the regular doctor 6 months later. And he's like, oh, the blood test. You got to go back to the kidney doctor. Well, I knew what was going on. So I went to the kidney doctor again. Kidney doctor says, just come off it for 6 weeks, let it flush out of your system. Come back, you'll be fine, and you'll never have to deal with this again. So I did. So I went yesterday. Guess what? Everything is fine. In fact, she says not only are my kidneys fine, but they're better than they should be for someone my age. So come back in 6 months. Why the hell am I having to keep going back to doctors every 6 months for stuff I used to not have to? And it's not because I'm old. It's because they got to do billables for the hospital. And it's the most frustrating thing. Why can't I have a doctor where, like, when I know I'm sick, like I get sick on occasion, I'm like, I know. And you know what'll take care of it? A Z-Pack. Why do I need to try to schedule an appointment and come in? Why can't I just text my doctor and say, hey, I'm sick again. Can I get the storage pack of the Z-Pack? Like once a year it happens. It's the same thing every year. And instead I got to go to the doc in the box because I can't get into the regular doctor. And the doc in the box is like, oh, guess what? You need a Z-Pack and you need a storage pack and you're fine. And given the amount that I travel, can I not just – I used to have a doctor who I dearly love, but it was impossible to get in, and now he's got a great promotion. I can't – I'm just so frustrated with this medical system where why can't I go to the doctor once a year? And he says, oh – you're on blood thinner for the rest of your life. Here's your prescription. Yeah, next year, come back in for your physical and we'll re-up it, as opposed to, oh, I think you need to come back in 6 months. Why? Why do I need to come back in 6 months so you can say, oh, we got to re-up your blood thinner medicine and we can't charge you for a physical because your insurance only covers it once a year, but we're going to do this other stuff so we can keep billing you every 6 months. I don't want to go to a doctor every 6 months. I'm a busy person. It's driving me crazy. And then the specialist, come back and you're perfectly fine. You don't need us, but come back in 6 months and we'll see. We're all being scammed. It's not just every single one of us is being scammed these days. I thought Obamacare was supposed to make stuff better. It's not. You know, there are actually great healthcare solutions in this country advanced by groups like Americans for Prosperity, common sense solutions that would lower insurance costs and provide us better access to healthcare in this country. They've got great issue advocacy for the border and security and school choice and so much more. Americans for Prosperity would love to have you on their side. All you have to do is go to americansforprosperity.org. They are the largest grassroots organization in the country, and they fight on the right for free markets and free people. They fight for school choice. They fight for secure borders. They fight for common sense healthcare reforms, actually lower costs. All you got to do is go to americansforprosperity.org. They have chapters in almost every single state. Americansforprosperity.org. They're a great organization, y'all. I'm deeply moved to be able to support them and to do events for them. They're going to be at the conference as well. They'll be there. You can meet them. Americansforprosperity.org. Go check them out today in your state. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson. The phone number is 877-973-7425. I want to go to Spencer. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Hey, Eric. Fine. How are you?
Great.
Good. I'm going to fulfill my job description here as a caller and try to make you look good.
Excellent.
I'm wondering what your opinion is about the Republicans' chances of taking back the Senate in November?
I actually think it's better than even odds that the GOP takes back the Senate. And let me explain why. So of the seats that are at stake right now, you've got Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Montana, Oregon, West Virginia, Arizona, and Nevada are swingy. The Nevada, the Arizona situation, I think at this point is lost. Carrie Lake is a trans winner. She's a loser who identifies as a winner who's not a good candidate. The Republicans in Arizona decided they wanted to commit suicide, much like the Oregon Republican Party at one point did. The California Republican Party did. They decided we're going to go purist, hard right, screw the rest of you, and they'll never get elected again as a result. So Arizona's off the table. I think Carrie Lake is a horrible candidate. Nevada, however, is in play. But you don't have to start with Nevada. So right now, if Democrats sweep everything, it would be a 50-50 Senate. Why? Because West Virginia, Joe Manchin's seat is going to get picked up by the Republicans. With that, it becomes a 50 seat Republican Senate. If Trump wins the White House, Republicans have the majority. However, Nevada could very well go Republican. Nevada has been trending Republican. Trump is still doing very well there. Kamala Harris doesn't play well there. That would be a 51 seat Republican majority. If Bernie Moreno beats Sherrod Brown, that's 52. If Tim Sheehy beats John Tester in Montana, that's 53. If Eric Hovde wins in Wisconsin, that's 54. If Dave McCormick wins in Pennsylvania, that's 55. If Mike Turner wins in Michigan, that's 56. Don't forget, there's also Larry Hogan in whatchamadiggity in Maryland. Larry Hogan has a very good shot at winning. That would be 57. So, yeah, you got a 57-seat Republican majority there if Republicans sweep those states. If Republicans don't sweep those states, they have 50 seats. The Republicans are not expected to lose any of theirs, including Texas. I would say the worst case scenario is that the Republicans have 51 seat, because I think they can win Nevada. Sam Brown, who's going to be at the conference next week at the gathering, is a compelling candidate. The Democrat there is not a compelling candidate. John Tester knows how to win in Montana, and Sherrod Brown knows how to win in Ohio, so I'm not super optimistic on those, but I can be surprised. Tim Sheehy is a compelling candidate in Montana. Bernie Moreno, I don't think is a fantastic candidate, but the Republicans have been making up ground there. I mean, you got J.D. Vance there. You've got a Republican governor there that tends to advance those sorts of candidates, and so there's a potential pickup there. That gets me into Kamala Harris, and I really want to spend a lot of time on Kamala Harris in the next hour, but I do have to say this, and you do need to keep this in mind. The Democrats are on a sugar high right now, and sugar highs always tend to collapse. That's not just me. Here's Brian Lanza on CNN.
The Democrats and maybe some independents are relieved that it's not Joe Biden. They're like, thank God it's somebody. Thank God it's Harris. But what happens with every sugar high? We all crash at the end of it. And they're going to crash once they start dissecting her record. And I elected people in California. To win anything in San Francisco, you have to be a near socialist to win there. Those values are very much outside of the mainstream.
Now, he's right. Brian Lanza worked for Trump in 2016. The Democrats are telling you that everyone is excited about Kamala Harris. She had a good turnout in Atlanta last night. Trump will be at the same venue. I guarantee you, if it's possible for the media to say so, they'll try to make a claim that Trump didn't have as many people as Kamala Harris did. It's one reason, if you're a Republican in the Southeast, you should go to the Trump-Vance rally on Saturday in Atlanta. Show up. Fill the arena. But there's a problem, and that problem is Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris hasn't been a popular vice president. She's largely been hidden by the Biden administration because they know her overexposure undoes her. When she goes off script, she gets undone. They're on a sugar high and will crash from the sugar high. I will spend more time on this later, but here's what you need to just remember. Every single member of the media right now telling you Kamala Harris is firing on all cylinders and has massive enthusiasm is a same reporter who told you 2 months ago there was nothing wrong with Joe Biden and you were terrible for believing there was. The same people who are gaslighting you about Joe Biden are gaslighting you about Kamala Harris because they want to believe. Essentially what they're doing is they're going through a social construction phase where they're trying to get you to force you to think like them. If they believe, if they tell you over and over again that everybody likes Kamala Harris, that you will begin to like Kamala Harris because they say so. The problem for them is Kamala Harris's record suggests otherwise. I'll spend more time on that. But before I get to that, there's something else I got to point out because there's a fundamental in the election that we got to get to. I'll take your phone calls as well, 877-973-7425. But this can't be emphasized enough. There's a story in the Wall Street Journal today. If you get the show notes, you would get this. If you text data to 33777, you can get the show notes link. You can save money on the paid subscription. It's in the show notes for paid people. But here's the headline: the haves and have-nots at the center of America's inflation fight. The third year of America's inflation fight is widening a split at the heart of the economy. The stock market is soaring, household wealth is at record levels, and investment income has never been greater. At the same time, some families' pandemic-era savings are running dry, and delinquencies on credit cards and auto loan payments have jumped. Warning signals are flashing for more low- and middle-income Americans, exposing a division between people whose gains are being whittled down by elevated inflation and borrowing costs and those who are benefiting from high asset prices and bond returns. The cross currents are scrambling the outlook for the U.S. consumer, a bedrock of economic growth, corporate business plans, and Wall Street investments. Inflation had damaged President Biden's reelection bid long before he dropped out of the race. Now, analysts expect Vice President Kamala Harris will broadly pitch an extension of his agenda, even as many voters blame it for exacerbating price pressures. Former President Donald Trump, meanwhile, has proposed policies, including tax cuts and tariffs that many economists warn could buoy inflation. While voters decide who they fault for price hikes and which candidate might offer remedies, America's economy continues to defy expectations of a slowdown and muscle ahead of other wealthy nations. The U.S. job creation machine has boosted wages, recently outpacing inflation. Investors are now growing more hopeful the Federal Reserve can tame inflation without wreaking widespread havoc. But that could hinge on the resilience of consumers. Now, I want to talk to you about the macro and microeconomic effects. I've talked to you about this before, but I got to put this out there again because it's very important you understand this. When you go to college, you have separate courses, macroeconomics and microeconomics. The microeconomics class is about the way the economy works at the household level. Macroeconomics is how it works at the nation state level. At the national level, macroeconomically, this country is doing very good. This country is doing far better than every other nation. Our inflation is actually less. Our job creation and economic growth is better. At the microeconomic level, however, households are continuing to struggle. Because wages fell so far below the inflation rate, you were essentially having pay cuts. Because every time you went to the grocery store, you were spending so much more money over the last couple of years, you were essentially seeing a decline in pay and a decline in your wealth. Only in the last few months has that equaled out and now rebounded. But for a while there, you were making less, and still you've fallen behind as a result. For some Americans, however, they've benefited. So for a number of years, interest rates were so low, bond yields were very low, savings accounts were very low. A lot of seniors on fixed incomes who had money parked in safe investments, they weren't making very much money at all. Now suddenly, with interest rates higher, they're making more money. So if you got $1,000 in an account and that account is earning 5% per year, you're making, what, $50? When it was at 1% a year, you were just making $1 a year. Wait, is that right? No, you're making $5 on 1,000. You're making $1. Sorry, again, math. I went to law school, but you get my point. If you're making 1% on $1,000, that's right. That's $10. That's $10. 1% on $1,000 is $10. So 5% on $1,000 was $50. Now, I'm not going to scale this up to $1 million in an account earning 5%. Just keep it at the $1,000 level for a moment. Normal interest rates have tended to be 4 or 5%. When interest rates are 4 and 5%, a lot of businesses can't take on a lot of debts, nor can households. The problem is when a business takes on a debt, that business has access to credit that is at a lower interest rate than your household. Your household typically puts it on a credit card that's going to get, 20, 25% interest, as opposed to the business that might have to pay 9% interest. So at the macroeconomic level, the business can still come out pretty good. At the microeconomic level, you're getting screwed. But then when interest rates fall so much, you're still getting charged high interest rate on your credit card. Businesses aren't getting charged a whole lot at all. In fact, they're making more in the stock market. So they can take out a lot of debt, and then based on the returns they're making in the stock market, they can pay off the debt. And then the interest rates go up, and everything collapses for businesses. The problem we're having in this country ultimately is that the government has been bailing out so many businesses and making things comfortable for businesses. They haven't allowed a collapse to happen, and a collapse is probably going to happen for businesses. A free market thrives on the creative destruction of the marketplace, and the government has been subsidizing businesses so that that creative destruction cannot happen, and it will eventually happen, and the cost and the fallout will be worse than it was before. In the meantime, in the middle class, there are people beginning to struggle. The wealthy and seniors with a lot of money earning interest, they're doing okay. The middle class with credit card debts, now they're stuck in a house because any other house would be too unaffordable because of mortgage rates. They're stuck. This is breeding resentment. And this will play into politics, and this will play into the election, because ultimately Kamala Harris may be the new and shiny for the Democrats, but the issues still matter. Crime is still an issue. Inflation is still an issue. The border is still an issue. Groceries are still an issue. World affairs are still issues, and she can't run from the Biden-Harris administration because she's the Harris in the Biden-Harris administration. And Donald Trump would be smart to focus on those issues instead of personal attacks. Now, let me talk to you about your business. You want your business to survive. This financial times, there's a lot of economic uncertainty right now. There's signs that consumer sentiment is going up, but job hiring is slowing down, and you need your employees to be as productive as possible. One way to make them as productive as possible is to not have them have to worry about their computers all the time. You can't afford the in-house IT guy, but I bet you can afford $179 a year. That's what you'd pay if you called 404 Compute and you use Vision Computers as your IT, as your tech support. And your employees, they can get great help, 15 seconds or less. Get back on their computers, get to work it again. In many cases, Vision Computers can remote in and help. You don't have to pay the in-house IT guy. You can use Vision Computers. They can build you computers, and if they build the computers, their tech support comes for free. But if you don't have their computers for $179 a year, they will be your tech support solution, and your employees can call them and say, hey, this thing's happening on my computer. I don't know what it is. I'm not a computer expert, and Vision will take care of them. They've been around for over 30 years because they're dependable, they're affordable, they're great quality. I say that as a customer of Vision Computers, and you can be a customer too. Any one of you nationwide, call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. If you call them at 404-COMPUTE and tell them I sent you, you get an even better deal. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. Delighted to have you. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. If you're buying a building, building a building, if you need an equipment loan, if you got great credit, they can move fast. They make their own lending decisions, and they have since the 90s. Reach out to them, firstlibertyga.com. They can help any business in the United States, firstlibertyga.com. They make their decisions, and they'd love to partner with you if they can help you grow. All right, let's see here. I want to go to Steve in Kansas City, Missouri. Welcome.
Thank you. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for listening.
I listen to you quite a bit, and to be honest, I'm retired, and I spend a lot of time listening to conservative TV and conservative radio. And I have an issue with your comment about Kamala being on the honeymoon phase of her candidacy.
Okay.
Joe Biden had 50 years of records to go on, and he still got elected. Kamala doesn't have 50 years, and she's got a pretty bad record, but Biden still got elected. So I think Republicans need to find another way to contradict or counter her candidacy, because the 50 years of Biden and 4 years of Biden-Harris and her previous record as an AG, I don't think that's going to be enough to stop him from electing her.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that Kamala couldn't even make it through the Democratic primary in 2020. She dropped out before Iowa. Joe Biden was able to win in large part the nomination because he was Obama's VP, and then COVID hit and threw everybody for a loop in 2020. So I think that her record matters greatly, and also she doesn't come across as a supremely likable person the more she goes off script. In fact, that's one of the things the Trump campaign says they want to try to do is force her off the script. So I would think that we're headed in the right direction as far as being able to undermine her. But I will say, to your point, however, Steve, is that the Republicans do need to stick to a plan instead of just having a throw everything in the kitchen at the wall and see what sticks. They need to. I mean, I personally think, like I said yesterday, you focus on her being an overly ambitious ladder climber without any principles, willing to abandon anyone and anything, throw everyone under the bus to get ahead. People don't like that. You combine that with her flip-flops and her very, very progressive record. I think that matters. In fact, the Trump campaign has a new ad out today.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
This is America's border czar, and she's failed us. Under Harris, over 10 million illegally here. 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl. Brutal migrant crimes. And ISIS now here.
Do you have any plans to visit the border? You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
Kamala Harris, failed, weak, dangerously liberal.
That's the Trump ad, unveiled overnight last night. I could be polished, I think, but I think they're headed in the right direction with this stuff. When we come back, Kamala Harris had her first big rally in Atlanta. The media wants you to know it is the greatest rally since Adolf Hitler took the stage in Germany. So many people, such adoring fans. Lenny Revenstall would be proud of the orchestration on MSNBC and how they handled it. We'll get into what happened.